Welcome to Kenpo Circle number 6. In this episode, I'm going to talk about flashing daggers and the different variations of it you can find throughout the Kenpo systems. So flashing daggers is for a push. It can be taught as a push. Some people teach it as a grab, but it's any kind of a frontal attack that comes at you. Now, why are we doing this technique? Well, we're doing this technique because we didn't control our distance. Someone came up inside the critical distance line and actually shoved us. Because if we had controlled our distance, they would not have been able to do anything to us. If they had stepped forward, we had stepped back, no strike could have happened. But for whatever reason, someone's come up and shoved. Now, when someone comes up and shoves, it's usually because they're going to follow with a punch. They're trying to assert their dominance over you and make you feel inadequate, so it's easier for them to attack. So if someone comes up and shoves, what we want to do is we want to block that shove, protect the center line. So because we're being shoved, we want to get our foot back. So the first thing we're going to do as we're being shoved is we're just going to get our hands in there, just like this. So as the hands come in, you kind of come in and wedge block it, like this. Get those hands separated. With the hands separated, now we have the open targets of the body to work with, like this. So from here, we've got several options. We got the face, the ribs, the whole center line. Now, depending on your instructor and the style of Kenpo you're in, will depend on what will happen next. The basic pattern is the same, which is block, strike, 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 and out. Some systems have more strikes, some systems have less strikes. Some Kenpo systems, instead of using chops, they use heel palms. Instead of striking the ribs, they'll heel palm the ribs instead of knife edging the ribs. Instead of striking the throat, they'll heel palm the jaw. So it's just the different variations of how they're interpreting the technique and the reaction of your opponent. So you can do it from this angle here. As the push is coming in, we gotta get ourselves stable so that we can return the favor or the strike. So we don't want to just be hitting here and then just being shoved backwards. We want to immediately get into a position of stability. And then we're going to separate those arms. Now in American Kenpo, this is called parting wings. And in White Tiger Kenpo and Tracy's Kenpo, this is called flashing daggers. Now in American Kenpo, just like in the other Kenpo systems, they all three do the same thing at this point. They all do the wedge block. Then from here, you're going to take this hand and you're going to kind of circle it. You don't want to stop. You don't want to stop and then pull. You want to get into the habit as you're doing your wedge block. This hand continues on a circular or oval trajectory and comes in and strikes the ribs with an inverted strike. Now, as I said, some systems teach this as a heel palm to the ribs. Then from here, you're in a hard bow. You're going to shift back into a horse stance as you strike the throat. Because what happens is you strike those ribs and they're going to double over. That'll expose the throat. You strike the throat, that stands them back up. Then we do a spear hand to the solar plexus. Now this is another where a difference is. Some systems teach this as an eagle beak strike or a middle knuckle fist, and some will teach it as a vertical punch. But either way, it's going to the solar plexus. And then from here, in White Tiger and Tracy, you do a shot to the groin. So, wedge block, ribs, throat, solar plexus, groin, and cross out. In American Kenpo, they only do the first 3 strikes. The ribs, the throat, and then the solar plexus. Now in American Kenpo, they either do heel palms or they do strikes depending on the their instructor and the interpretation. So as they come in, we're going to step back. This hand is going to continue on its orbital circular motion as we come in with a strike, go to hard bow, back to stance, back to hard bow, back to stance as we do a knife edge back to the groin, and then you cross out. Now this is an in close attack. A lot of people think this is in at length, okay? But this is a pretty close in tight attack. This is in close enough that you have other options here. You can rake the eyes as you go to strike the ribs. So from here, you can come in across and rake and then strike. Also from here, this is acting as a check. So even though this hand is circling back around, this hand is staying in a check position. Now from this position, you can also shove the shoulder as you come in. You can kind of come in and strike from there. Then back and then out. Okay, so that's flashing daggers. So we have variations of that, like I said. Some systems, they teach us as a choke, and they'll teach an eye rake followed by the knife edge. Some I've seen this taught as, once you've done the wedge block, this is a heel palm strike, this is an eye rake, then you come back in with another heel palm to the jaw, and then you come in with a vertical punch to the solar plexus, and then you cross out. Because in American Kenpo, they have extensions in their upper belts. Usually from about third or second round, they'll start adding extensions to the techniques, and this is one of the techniques that will have an extension added to it, so they end there. I've also seen one other Kenpo instructor, American Kenpo instructor, teach a follow-up as part of this technique. So what they've done is they teach it as a choke. They come in and they block, they strike the ribs, strike the throat, vertical punch the solar plexus, and then from there they come in and grab the arm, check the shoulder as they sweep the leg, hanging onto the arm, they drop the knee into the ribs, or a punch to the ribs to finish it up. So there's different variations to this technique just depending on how you're being taught and by whom. So again, flashing daggers, we step back. Okay, we want to open up their arms, but we don't want it wide open. We just want enough just to open it up. So it's just a quick double wedge block. So, and we're not coming way down here and then way up here. This is your hands are down and it's just a quick block. Because remember, they're just coming in and shoving. So as they come into our personal space, we make that block. Then from here, we can strike the ribs, the throat, the solar plexus, and the groin. Now the other thing to keep in mind when doing this technique is this first motion. Okay? We do not want this to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and so on. Because if you stop here, they're going to readjust. You need to make this first move very quickly. So as soon as you block, you want to immediately block and strike. So when you're practicing this, as you get this motion down and stepping back, practice stepping and striking almost at the same time. And then from there, you can set up the timing of your following strikes depending on how they're reacting to that first strike. But that first strike is important. You want to step back and immediately hit them. Okay, don't stop, then strike, boom, boom, boom. This should be boom, 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 boom. Okay, so make sure these hands are coming up, and they should be about shoulder level height, and they should be about shoulder level width, just enough to open those arms up. We don't want our hands way out here, okay, because then that opens us up as well. We want just enough to throw the strike. Now from here, we could have easily hit the throat and just stayed with the upper body. It just depends on what's going on and what your opponent is doing. The nice thing about Kenpo is we give you all these techniques to show you how possibly you could do a technique, how possibly you can defend yourself in a certain situation. But this technique can be used for just a regular grab. You can come in with your wedge block and just chop the rib, neck. Okay, same motion. Okay, so just like this, except instead of chopping the ribs, we're chopping the neck. So you can do the same thing. So it's just 1, 2. But there again, we want to get that first strike in as quick as we can. Okay? But the main thing is the wedge block, because as they shove, we want to get our stability, and then as soon as we get that stability, we want to hit them. And we want to hit them as hard as we can. Now whether you do a knife edge or a heel palm, that's going to totally depend on you and your instructor. But then again, Kenpo is great because you can make this technique your own. Once you understand the pattern and what it is that you're doing, you can mix and match those strikes up. For example, wedge block, eye rake, heel palm at the same time to the throat. Then finish up the rest of it differently. You can also come in and just do hammer fists. Okay? I know it's called flashing daggers, but you can change those strikes to fit any of your environment that you're in or the conditions that you're in. So again, flashing daggers. You step back, double wedge block. This is going to follow the line and immediately come back in. It's going to come up and under that arm and strike that rib cage as you go to hard bow. This hand's going to set up because our next strike's to the face. As the face comes forward, we're going to throat chop. But if for some reason the throat's blocked, you can turn that into a heel palm just by rolling the hand over and striking the jaw. Then you're going to do a spear hand to the solar plexus or a middle knuckle fist, depending on your instructor. Now remember, these two strikes are soft target or soft tissue strikes. They're not meant to go to bones. They're not meant to strike the head. They're only meant to strike soft targets of the body. Now, why are we using these specific targets? Well, because it's simple. If you can't see, you can't fight. If you can't breathe, you can't fight. So we take away some of that as we do the strikes. So we come in here and we strike that ribs. That's going to make it a little hard to breathe. Then we strike the throat. That's going to intensify that breathing problem. Then we go for the solar plexus. So by the time we get done with our groin shot, this guy is going to be on the ground or standing up but having a hard time breathing. And if you can't breathe, you can't fight, which is a good reason why sometimes coming across the face with the eyes, rake those eyes. As you come in, break them, okay? Scratch the eyes and make it harder for them to see, or just watering the eyes. Sometimes if you hit somebody in the nose, you know how the eyes water, it makes it hard to see. Not that you're hurt or anything, you're just temporarily unable to get a clear focus. So same thing, you come across with your fingers right across those eyes. They're going to put that head back. That'll also arch and tighten up those ribs as we strike the ribs. Then they're going to double over, or they may even bend. So we strike again with the knife edge to the throat, or again, it could be a heel palm. It'll both work. Then as they step back, that tightens up that solar plexus. So we're going to go after that target again with either a middle knuckle fist or a spear hand. And then in White Tiger and Tracy's, they have one more following strike as we do a knife edge and cross out. Because in those two systems, there is no extensions until you get past the way in the upper belts. Usually between second, third, at Tracy's, I think it's fifth black before they even start doing extensions. In White Tiger, Kenpo, they start doing extensions at second black. They have, second black is made up of all extensions of lower belt techniques. So that's when you start doing it at that level. So again, flashing daggers, step back, a wedge block, okay? Making sure that these hands are coming up right in between them. So as soon as the guy steps in to shove, we block, okay? So you want that first move, as soon as you can get it down, is 1, 2. You spread those hands out and immediately strike. Then you can have that slight pause and redirect the strikes according to your situation. So when you're practicing this technique, practice it different ways. Practice the way it was taught. Practice the way you need to in order to pass your test. But also practice ways that make it your own technique, that make it personal for you. How do you make this technique work for you so that you could use it in the streets? If you prefer, you don't use the knife edge, you use the hammer fist, or you use a heel palm. Same thing for the solar plexus. Now when you do your middle knuckle, you don't want it way out here because it's real loose. Okay, so if you're using the middle knuckle thing, you want it in protruding just a little bit so it's nice and tight. You want the thumb on that to help brace it so that when you hit them, the power's coming from the wrist and the arm and not from this. And all this is going to do is penetrate all that strength and stuff into one area. It's a lot different than a vertical punch. A vertical punch gets you one reaction, a middle knuckle strike will get you a different reaction. But the downside of the middle knuckle punch is if you don't hit that target right on, you may not get the result that you're looking for, especially if you start hitting into the rib cages. Okay, so one more time, we have flashing daggers, block, strike the ribs, strike the throat, strike the solar plexus, all while shifting between hard bow or forward bow, depending on your system, into your horse stance, and then knife edge to the groin, and then you do your cross out. Okay? That is flashing daggers for American Kenpo, and White Tiger Kenpo, and Tracy's Kenpo. I hope you enjoyed this short episode on that technique and the different variations you can use. As always, thank you for joining my episode and watching this video, and hope you have the best day and keep moving forward with your journey in Kenpo. Until our next episode, move forward.